I would love to hear from our panelists what they think is important and their view on what's been done and what is next. So Tanguy and Courtland, and I believe we have one more panelist, right, who will be joining us. I'm not sure I see Yara. Fantastic. There we go. We have 3 panelists. Well, 4 and Claude too. How can I forget Claude? Fantastic. So Claude, since you joined last, do you want to start by introducing yourself and then we can go?
Yes. Hi, Yara. Hi, everyone. I'm Claude Spasevski. I'm the Senior Vice President at Equativ. Equativ is a global ad tech company, and our objective is to simplify all the programmatic buying across the board. So we also recently acquired a Camino for on-site activities, which expand our capabilities for retail media off-site and on-site. And I pass the mic to
Yara? Not
Yara.
Me, the other Yara. Yes, it's very confusing. There's not usually multiple Yaras on a panel. So.
Yeah, I agree, but lovely to be here. Hello, everyone. My name is Yara, and I'm the Commerce Strategy Director for EMEA at GroupM Nexus. And my role consists of empowering our in-market teams in the space of retail media, consultancy, and everything in between when it comes to commerce, and hoping to shed some light today from an agency lens.
Fantastic. And Tanguy, do you want to go next?
Yes, thanks, Yara, and thanks for inviting me. I am Tanguy. I'm in charge of retail partnerships at Unlimitail. Unlimitail is a retailer alliance around retail media in Europe and Latin America. And I am also the co-founder and chairman of Alliance Digitale Retail Media Committee, which was created 5 years ago. Nice to be here with you today.
Great. And last but not least, Courtland.
Hello, everyone. I'm Courtland Deering. I'm the team lead for retail media technology and innovation at Douglas. And Douglas is a premium beauty retailer across Europe.
Great. So you've all been involved to some extent in our standardization work. And my first question, I guess maybe let's start with Tanguy and we can go to Courtland next, is what do you think we've accomplished so far that works really well? And what do we need to do next? And are we focused on the right things?
Yes, so first, and you demonstrated a bit earlier, we have been active over the last maybe 2-3 years at the European level. But for us in France, for example, we started 5 years ago. I think it was the beginning of a work on standardization and harmonization, because the first step is always to understand what is doing each party, each stakeholder, and discover what are the main topics and main differences as well. So we giving definition, as you mentioned before, sharing first guidelines for on-site, but also for off-site, and now for digital in-stores are very, very great steps, because it's the way you are defining a market and way to set some rules, some guidelines, joints to explain also the market. And maybe another point is, we had the beginning of some starting alliances like Unlimitail, which is an alliance of retailers, who is also helping, I guess, some standardization and harmonization, because we try to group different retailers on the same technology, same way to think about retail media, which is another way to look at it as well. And finally, obviously, I guess certification is a very great piece of work, because standards are good, but if they are not respected, this is not something that will be live. And certification is giving maybe more trust. So obviously, retail media is already a trustworthy environment because you are on the retailer websites, which are brand safe, on retailer data, which is confirmed by transaction, which is very good, but certification is a very good addition and an additional big step forward for the market, I would say.
Fantastic. Courtland, would you like to add anything to that and maybe talk a little bit about what you think are the next steps that we should be focused on? We have our roadmap, as I've just shown, but would love to get your thoughts on, are these the right things to focus on, in your opinion, for a retailer like Douglas?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. So starting with on-site retail media and then doing work afterwards on in-store. And I think that was a really great approach and the right prioritization that we did so far. In terms of what needs to still be done in standardization, I think in store, we're still really starting that journey. So we had our first conversations on the different KPIs and definitions that we go to the standards with, but the work is still being done in many of these retailers to put live an offering. And I think when retailers at scale across Europe have significant in-store offerings, maybe some of their opinions and perspectives will change as the project comes to life. And I think digitalization of the store in general is a mega trend in retail, and it's still at its very early stages. There are a lot of different technologies that could enable different analysis to be done. But these are very hardware dependent and quite challenging from a privacy perspective as well to implement. In terms of like what I would like to see retailers gather around and work on next as a whole new category of standardization, echoing what Moritz and Andrew said around how important experiential retail media is, I think a lot deeper standardization work can be done in that area around product sampling and what happens with store employees in the store as part of different retail media offerings.
Yes, could not agree more. It's definitely the next barrier, but also, you know, next area of growth. So a lot to think about here, and very excited to partner with you on that. Thinking, Yara, you and I talked a little bit yesterday about incrementality, and you know, I think the whole industry knows it's time to move beyond ROAS. Incrementality is a big piece of it, but there's other insights that are also very important. What do you, as an agency, focus on, and what do you think, you know, your brands need to be looking at to go beyond that ROAS measurement? And how do you think of incrementality amongst other things?
Yeah, so yeah, I think with the incrementality topic, it's great to see IAB, you know, trying to standardize that as a topic in itself, because it can be quite broad. And then when we start looking at different mediums within retail media, that's where it gets exciting, but can be quite complex. But I think when it comes to, as an agency, we're in this sweet spot of, you know, having retailers as partners, having brands and clients as partners in a way as well. And how we kind of maneuver that is to be the spokesperson for both angles, I think is quite crucial for an agency. When it comes to kind of the challenges with standardization as a whole, tech stacks kind of come to mind. So historically, where a lot of retailers are using a very diverse amount of tech stacks, that's where, you know, the silos within data and cross-network measurement can be quite challenging. But I think where the opportunity lies and where agencies can come in and support is that middleware tech. So that middle ground between some of the more kind of bigger tech stacks out there in the market. So for example, at GroupM, earlier this year, we've partnered with Incremental in the US, where we've actually co-engineered the methodology within our open media studios. And I bring that up because not only can we use some of that technology when it comes to retail media forecasting, planning, and measurement, but actually standardizing attribution windows for all retailers in our own and taking control over that narrative. So the way it's done is kind of hooking up directly to each retailer's API or manually doing that if an API doesn't exist, but kind of having that goal of independent modeling, which effectively is a rapid MMM. So that type of mindset, I think, is becoming more and more common and something we want to roll out globally, which can get quite exciting when we're controlling the narrative when it comes to standardization.
That makes a lot of sense. For those who don't have agencies and don't have the same level of sophistication as you do, what do you think is the next best thing?
I think having that open-ended conversation with retailers and brands, I think we're all on the journey of standardization, and it's key to start tackling those, holistically with debates like this and conversations like this to empower brands to have that conversation. But to your point, I mean, when we're looking at a global scale, markets differ, maturity differs. So having that open-ended conversation, I think, is super clear, and actually coming into that conversation knowing what standardization looks like, because I think that's a big piece of the puzzle that not many people come to the conversation with.
Right. And Claude, you're focused on both on-site and off-site, right? And so what are some of the nuances you're saying measuring that full funnel, especially as we go into more advanced measurement like incrementality?
Yeah, measurement from off-site and on-site are very different in a way that they are not using the same analytics or let's say the same objectives. While I think that we all agree that we need to have a best way to move to IRS in the near future. The thing is that delivering it's very complex because we have no standards yet, and that's something we'll have to work very hard to do. We also need to break the silos, because if I'm putting myself in the agencies or marketers' position, what I want is to get some reach, and to have reach, it goes beyond the retailer itself. And we also need to make sure that we find technologically a way that we can bring everybody together, but at the same time guaranteeing the privacy of each of the retailer and their touch point that they have, because that's a key topic. And I don't think we have achieved yet the use case that I've seen or we've been working on. We haven't achieved yet something that is compliant for all. But with the work with IB and the industry moving forward, I think that that's the next steps that we will need to be focusing on, because that will be critical for everybody to get a very simplified way of connecting each other. And I will say we have a lot of work to do on that side.
Makes perfect sense. And then we're going to hear from the WFA, in our next panel. But all of this, the reason we do all the standardization work is to get the buy side more comfortable with anything they're buying, right? Today, there's still a lot of uncertainty in terms of what measurement they're getting and, being able to compare apples to apples. What do you think, and this is a question for Tanguy and Courtland, we need to do next as an industry to ensure the buy side has that trust and that level of comfort that we're aiming for?
I can start, and maybe Courtland, you will be able to add some point as well. I think on my side that developing frameworks of measurement are a good example of moving forward. This is something that we did this year in France with Alliance Digitale. So we published and released a measurement framework with the objective of creating a base of definitions but very precisely, meaning that we come from KPI per KPI, define those KPIs, share the calcul behind each KPI, the context, the bias, and also the availability, because we know that retailers that we are helping on the day-to-day could have different maturity in their retail media journey and retail media program. So some are already available in terms of KPIs and able to share everything. And others are maybe earlier in their journey, so they need just to see the KPIs that has been defined at a common level, in France. And I think this is a key for at a European, at a global level to follow. We did some very good first steps about guidelines at a global level, etc. But now we need maybe to go more in depth, and sharing this framework could be a good things to be done at a more wider scale, at least. Obviously, having the ability to do so for on-site, for off-site, for in-store tomorrow will be key for brands to get the control and get a clarity about how should I compare KPIs together. And maybe another point that I would like to mention here is we need to make it more make it easier for brands and agencies to access to retailer inventory and retailers' data. And this is maybe somewhere where the participation of IAB is really needed, of retailers' alliances that I was mentioning before can help as well. Because when you are a brand and you want to have one single plan with multiple retailer options, I think this is a clear solution for them to simplify the way to manage retail media on the day-to-day, and to be able to grow their investments and to get trust on these investments.
I agree with that, but also I think the most important element of that all is education. A lot of the retail media budgets aren't flowing through agencies today, so the people responsible for buying retail media are often not media people, so they might not understand exactly why we make standards in a certain way or what the challenges are behind them. So maybe it makes sense to talk a little bit about the challenges to standardization as well, so that agencies and people responsible for advertising on retail media can really understand how challenging the work is and how impressive what we've been able to put out is as well. So if you think about retail in general, and who is affected by our retail media standards, we have such a diverse group of stakeholders, from classifieds, delivery services, marketplaces, grocery chains, specialty retailers, and so much more. Some are brick and mortar, some are e-commerce, some are both. They sell everything from daily essentials to things that are purchased once in a lifetime, with structures that range from individuals selling on a platform to a collection of vendors, or having complete control of their supply chains. And this creates such a vastly different shopping journey, and it makes it difficult to establish one-size-fit-all standards. Industry leaders handled this well, in my opinion, in the in-store standards by bringing in zones that reflect different brick and mortar experiences. And on the on-site standards, when we talked about new to brand, we had different stages of how what period we would take into consideration based on what product was in consideration. So the real North Star to creating these standards is not about saying this definition means this always in the very unique landscape of retail, but to work towards a North Star around transparency, that we share what we mean and communicate that clearly to the ones holding the budgets and buying the media. You're muted, Yara.
Thank you. Sorry about that. There's so much in there that we could unpack. You've said, there's transparency as a key goal, the different buyers, and it is a big, how do we address all these different, even within retail, right? There's people who come from traditional trade and might not think in media terms, and then, helping them get there. Whereas there's others like Yara that are extremely sophisticated and are your buyers that have been buying media for ages, and have a different standard in terms of expectation. So if I want to pivot onto you, to Yara, what do you think is the biggest kind of barrier? We keep on hearing standardization, transparency is important. But if you want to distill those things and say, what are the two or three things that we could do as an industry to improve that trust?
Yeah, and just to echo your point, I think when it comes to maybe even the media people having very traditional media mindset, it doesn't help when, retail media has retail in it. You need to have that commerce lens, which I think agencies generally historically are something we're trying to combat for sure. I think the two or three major pressure points, I think, are how do we have that collaborative spirit in all angles, from the likes of a retailer, a brand, and an agency. One thing we've been seeing is having a partnership with a retailer to onboard new placements, be that test partner, has worked super well, to be able to empower the retailers to want to test more things, want to test more initiatives, and also getting a sense and a flavor of what clients are after. Because at the end of the day, if one starts, there's that domino effect of clients wanting to onboard unique propositions. And I think the dialogue between all three parties needs to become more and more of a norm. When we're thinking JBP conversations, when we're thinking trade agreements, inevitably as an agency, we want to start driving that conversation more and more, which has worked really well in the past. I think as an agency, generally, we do have that responsibility to push retailers in that right direction, to allow our clients to take that leap of faith, essentially, and ensuring that we are here to support retailers again, but also brands. And I think one common theme is we're seeing retailers as clients as well coming to us for that guidance, and having IAB as a strong ground for a lot of these retailers to base off of their new propositions has been super helpful.
Claude, anything you would add as parting words? We're a couple of minutes over, but would love to hear your final thoughts.
Oh yeah, I think we are now at a stage in the retail media that we know what is the what we are trying to do. We understand where we want to go. We've seen the evolution of retail media over the years, and we know that we need to standardize and also to work collaboratively all together on that. I will say the main question that we still need to work on is how we will be achieving that. IAB frameworks and workshops are key in order to respond to that and to make sure that everybody's working together. But there is also, I would say, I'm going to take my side on the ad tech side. I think technology, or let's say developments, will help us a lot to accelerate what we are trying to achieve. We need to, when I'm looking at the volume of data or the volume of exchanges amongst platforms, we need to be very sensible on our carbon footprint, and at the same time making sure that we are capable to deliver the expected outputs that marketers and media companies and retailers are looking for. And it's a very complex, let's say, work to be done. So I will say, as a note, we still need to work on this how, and making sure that we are capable to deliver on ticking the boxes that everybody is expecting us to do, and making sure that the marketers understand also the complexity that needs to be delivered, because that's a massive amount of work that we need to be doing.
Amazing. Well, thank you all. Thanks for your different perspectives. And it really is a collaborative work. It's the retailers, the agencies, the brands, the tech, and the IAB and industry bodies all coming together. So thanks for bringing your perspective. And I think we're on to our next panel.
Yes, thank you very much. Very interesting discussion, and it's clear that standardization is key to driving the industry forward. So thank you all for your contribution. Thank you, Yara, Claude, Tanguy, Courtland, and of course, Yara for the moderation.